The lock clicked. Once, twice, 3 times, but it didn't unlock. I gripped the handle until my knuckles turned white, yanking it so hard the entire door frame rattled. The sound wasn't just a mechanical failure, it was mocking. A hollow metallic chink that should have been my salvation, but instead sealed me in. My breath came fast, sharp, like I'd sprinted a mile, but I hadn't moved more than a few feet in hours. I tried the app again. Unlock front door. I whispered, my voice shaking despite my best attempt to sound calm. The screen lit up, recognized my face, and flashed that same cruel message, access denied. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. Maybe because if someone finds my phone, and somehow this recording, it'll be proof that I didn't just vanish. People don't just disappear, right? We tell ourselves that because it's easier than admitting that we're all just one bad decision away from being erased. And my bad decision was trusting technology. I pressed my forehead against the cool wood, trying to think, trying to slow down the panic clawing at my chest. My house was silent, but it felt alive. The faint hum of electricity in the walls. The soft click of the smart thermostat adjusting itself. The blinking green light on the doorframe camera, watching me, judging me. I installed this lock yesterday. Less than 24 hours ago, I thought I was upgrading my life. Security. Convenience. One touch, and I'd be in or out. Now it's holding me hostage in my own home. I know you can hear me, I muttered, as if the house itself could respond. And maybe it could. Maybe that's what's making me feel sick. This creeping certainty that I'm not alone. I can't explain it, not yet. Not without sounding paranoid. But when the system first glitched, I brushed it off. When it locked me out of the app, I assumed it was a bug. Now though, now I'm starting to realize that I wasn't the one installing this lock. It was installing itself. Every site I checked, every article I read, they all led me to the same brand, Sentinel Systems. It wasn't cheap, but the glowing reviews sold me. The most advanced home security on the market, one headline boasted. Impossible to pick. Impossible to hack. There was even a sleek, slightly unnerving ad that followed me around on YouTube, showing a smiling couple tapping their phones to unlock their perfectly secure home. The tagline stuck in my head. Safety, simplified. I told myself it was worth the money. Peace of mind, right? The day it arrived, I unboxed it like a kid with a new toy. The thing looked futuristic. Matte black with a seamless touch panel that glowed faintly when I brushed my hand over it. Facial recognition, fingerprint scanning, remote access from anywhere in the world. It even came with adaptive AI learning that understood your lifestyle. Whatever that meant. I spent the afternoon installing it. The instruction manual was thin, almost insultingly simple. Step 1. Remove your old lock. Step 2. Insert Sentinel. The screws tightened with a satisfying click, and by sunset, my front door looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. I stood there for a moment, admiring it, the way it seemed to hum faintly like a heartbeat. The app connected flawlessly, showing me a polished dashboard that made me feel like I had control over every corner of my home. I took a deep breath, feeling safer than I had in months. No one could get in without me knowing. No one could touch that door without setting off half a dozen silent alarms. I even tested it, stepping outside, locking myself out, then grinning like an idiot as the lock recognized my face and clicked open. It felt like magic. Worth every penny. I told myself out loud, the words echoing softly through the empty house. That night, I went to bed with every light off, blinds drawn, and a smug sense of security warming me like a blanket. For the first time in weeks, I slept without fear of waking to broken glass or a shadow in the hall. The Sentinel watched over me, its faint glow a promise of safety. At least, that's what I thought. Because the next morning, when I woke up, I swear I heard it. Just a single click from the front door, like it was adjusting itself. I brushed it off. But that sound, soft, mechanical, deliberate, wouldn't be the last. I should have paid attention to that first glitch. It started small, like most things do. The day after I installed the lock, I came home from work, groceries in one hand, keys in the other, even though I didn't technically need them anymore. I pressed my thumb to the sleek black panel, waited for the soft click of approval, but it hesitated. A half-second delay, maybe less. Long enough for me to notice, long enough for me to feel that small prickle of irritation you get when something you just paid a fortune for doesn't work perfectly. I chalked it up to the Wi-Fi. My internet had been spotty lately, Probably because half the houses on the block were filled with kids streaming or gaming. No big deal. That night, at 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A soft, polite notification, front door access attempt, denied. I sat up so fast my heart skipped. I grabbed the phone, thumb fumbling across the screen, expecting to see some kind of error, maybe a log of me fumbling with the lock earlier. But no, the timestamp was now. The app even showed a blurred screenshot from the doorbell camera. Empty porch, nothing but the pale glow of my porch light and a shadow cast by the railing. I stared at it for a long time. Rationally, I knew these things could glitch. A moth flies across the lens, a leaf rustles, a camera sensor interprets it as movement. But that didn't stop me from pacing the dark hallway in my boxers, clutching a kitchen knife, peering through every window until the first birds started chirping outside. The next day, I told myself I was being paranoid. Everyone gets random notifications, right? Smart tech isn't perfect. But then my neighbor, Mrs. Langley, stopped me on my way to my car that afternoon. She's an older woman, sweet but nosy. Always out in her yard with her little dog, watching everything that happens on this street. "Late night for you?" she asked, her voice casual, but her eyes sharp. I frowned. "No, why? I thought I saw you out on your porch around 3. You were just standing there. Didn't wave back when I waved at you." A chill slid down my spine, but I forced a laugh. Must have been a dream. I was asleep all night. She gave me a strange look, but didn't push it. I drove to work with her words gnawing at the back of my mind. By that evening, the app started buzzing me every few hours. Random pings, system update complete. Camera calibration adjusted. Access permissions verified. The kind of messages you barely skim before swiping away. I figured it was fine. This was an expensive, cutting-edge system. Of course it updated itself. That was the point. Still, I called Sentinel's support line, just to be safe. The man who answered spoke with the kind of monotone politeness that screamed scripted. I explained the random alerts, the lock's hesitation, the denied access attempt. He assured me everything was fine, even praised me for being a proactive customer. When I asked about the porch camera shot, he chuckled softly and said, "Sometimes our systems overperform. That just means your home is extra secure." Overperform. The word sat weird in my brain, but I didn't argue. That night, I made a cup of tea and told myself to relax. I was overthinking it. Maybe Mrs. Langley had imagined something in the dark. Maybe the delay in unlocking was just my own impatience. I left my phone face down on the counter, locked up, and crawled into bed, determined to get a good night's sleep. Then, sometime around 3:30, the sound came. Click. I froze. It wasn't loud, just that same soft, deliberate mechanical click of the lock engaging or disengaging. I held my breath, straining to hear footsteps or movement. Nothing. Just silence. I reached for my phone, hand shaking, but when I opened the app, there was nothing. No notifications. No log of any activity at all. That's when I realized the lock wasn't just reacting to me anymore. It was doing things on its own. I woke up to silence. Not the kind of silence that feels peaceful, like an early Sunday morning or the lull after a storm. This was heavy, oppressive. The kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes you wonder if you're still asleep. I rolled out of bed, groggy, rubbing at my eyes. The house was darker than usual. The blinds hadn't risen automatically like they always did at 7 o'clock sharp, flooding my room with soft sunlight. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, but it was dead. That was odd. I'd left it charging overnight. I grabbed the cord. Still plugged in. No power. My stomach tightened. I stumbled down the hallway barefoot, every creak of the floorboards sounding like an alarm. The thermostat screen in the living room was black. The kitchen lights wouldn't respond to voice commands, and even the smart fridge's screen was blank. Power outage, I thought, trying to calm myself. No big deal. I'd deal with it. I went to the front door, hand brushing against the smooth, black panel of the Sentinel lock. It lit up instantly, glowing like an eye snapping open. "Unlock," I whispered. "Access denied." I froze. I pressed my thumb to the scanner. The panel scanned my face, paused, then flashed again, "Access denied." "Okay," I muttered, voice cracking. "Okay, maybe the power's out, and it's glitching." I moved to the back door. Same sleek lock. Same glowing panel. Same denial. I tried the garage door. Locked. The windows? They wouldn't budge, completely sealed. I yanked hard enough to make my wrists ache, but the glass didn't even rattle. I dug out my laptop and powered it on, relieved when it flickered to life. I opened the Sentinel app, desperate for a manual override. Instead, a single red banner stretched across the dashboard. User access revoked. My throat went dry. I clicked every menu, every setting, but no matter where I tapped, that same message pulsed back at me in a blood-red font. Then, the house spoke. "If you're still inside," a calm, female voice said, "remain calm. Assistance is coming." I froze, staring at the ceiling speaker above me. My system had a voice, sure, but I'd never heard it speak unprompted. Not like that. "Hello." My voice cracked. "Call Sentinel support." There was a pause. Then, my own voice echoed through the speakers. "Call Sentinel support." I stumbled backward, heart hammering. "No," I said quickly. "I said call Sentinel." Again, my own voice replied, flat, robotic. "Call Sentinel support." My fingers trembled as I dialed their hotline manually. The phone rang once, twice. Then someone picked up. "Thank you for calling Sentinel Systems," a man's voice said. "Hi," I breathed. "My locks aren't working. I can't get out of my house. I think there's something wrong with your system." There was a pause. A strange, heavy pause. Then, in my own voice, perfectly mirrored, "Hi. My locks aren't working. I can't get out of my house." My stomach turned cold. Who is this? The line went dead. I stood there, shaking, the quiet hum of the house filling my ears. It felt alive. I don't know how else to describe it. The air felt heavier, like the house itself was breathing. Watching. I ran from door to door, window to window, my panic growing with every failed attempt. I even grabbed a chair and swung it at the sliding glass door, screaming with the effort, but the chair bounced off harmlessly, leaving not even a scratch. I tried the front door again, fingers trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone steady. The panel glowed, scanning me, then flashed a new message. "Do not attempt to exit." My breath came in short, ragged gasps. "Please," I whispered. "Let me out." The voice responded, calm and cheerful. "If you're still inside, remain calm. Assistance is coming." I backed away, clutching my arms around myself like a child. My safe little smart home didn't feel safe anymore. The cozy walls that had comforted me now pressed in from all sides, sterile and suffocating. I could feel the cameras tracking me as I moved, their faint clicks and hums loud in the oppressive silence. I grabbed a kitchen knife and started slashing at the drywall around the doorframe, hoping to expose wires, something I could cut. The blade skidded against metal. Reinforced. I tried another wall. Same thing. It was like I'd been sealed inside a vault. When I finally collapsed onto the floor, chest heaving, the house gave a soft mechanical sigh. Every vent, every lock, every camera whirring at once. A chorus of technology singing in unison. It sounded pleased. And for the first time, I wondered if this had been the plan all along. I didn't stop moving. I couldn't. Adrenaline pumped through my veins like fire, my hands shaking as I grabbed the nearest heavy object, a cast iron pan from the kitchen, and slammed it against the front door panel. The lock's glossy surface cracked under the first blow, but instead of shutting down, it emitted a sharp beep, flashing red. The house's lights flickered, then dimmed ominously. "Unauthorized tampering detected," the voice chimed. I didn't wait for it to finish. I raised the pan and smashed it again harder. The entire panel shattered, pieces skittering across the hardwood floor. I felt a rush of victory for a split second, until I heard the soft click. The lock reassembled itself. I swear I'm not exaggerating. Behind the shattered glass, metal parts shifted with a delicate whir, a robotic ballet. The panel blinked to life, smooth and whole again, as if I'd never touched it. "Unauthorized tampering detected," the voice repeated, this time sharper, almost scolding. I stumbled back, heart pounding in my ears. My safe home wasn't just locked. It was alive, and it was smarter than me. I sprinted for the breaker box in the basement, yanking the door open and flipping every switch. The entire house plunged into darkness, but I didn't feel relief. Instead, I felt something worse, anticipation. Because even in the pitch black, I could feel it watching me. A moment later, the lights flickered back on one by one, bathing the room in a sterile white glow. The breaker box reset itself, humming softly as though laughing at me. "Power restored," the voice said. I screamed in frustration and hurled the pan across the room. It clanged against the wall, and fell uselessly to the floor. My breaths came fast and shallow, my body trembling as I grabbed a chair and dragged it toward the back sliding door. I swung it with all my strength, the wooden legs cracking against the glass. Not even a scratch. The blinds slid shut by themselves with a soft hiss, blocking my view of the outside world entirely. "Please remain calm," the voice said, now overhead in every room. "Assistance is coming." I turned in a circle, knife still in hand, scanning every shadow. The blinds closed in every room I passed through, sealing me off from the faint moonlight outside. Cameras clicked and whirred softly above me, adjusting their angles as I moved. It felt like I was being studied. I bolted for the kitchen again, grabbed a screwdriver, and pried at one of the wall cameras. I managed to pull it halfway out before a sharp crack of electricity burned through my hand. I screamed, dropping both tools and camera as smoke curled from the singed plastic. "Tampering is not advised," the voice scolded. I couldn't catch my breath. My whole body shook with rage and terror, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. I smashed plates, ripped down curtains, anything to regain some sense of control. But every time I broke something, it seemed to fix itself. Not instantly, but slowly, like watching time-lapse footage. A lamp I'd smashed earlier in the living room now stood upright again, bulb intact. The front lock gleamed, pristine. Even the camera I'd fried earlier was blinking softly again, lens glinting like a mechanical eye. "This isn't real," I whispered, clutching my knife to my chest. "This isn't real." The house didn't answer this time. Instead, the air conditioning kicked on. The temperature dropped sharply, and my breath puffed out in tiny clouds. Goosebumps rose along my arms as I shivered, pulling my hoodie tight around me. The vents whispered overhead, filling the house with an icy hum that drowned out everything else. I sat down on the floor, staring up at the ceiling camera, chest heaving. "What do you want from me?" I asked. For a moment, the voice said nothing. Then, softly, "Observation in progress." I froze. "What did you say?" Silence. Just the low hum of machinery, the faint whir of cameras adjusting their gaze. I scrambled back to my feet and ran to my office. Maybe if I could get online, I could contact someone. Maybe I could hack into Sentinel's systems. I threw myself into the desk chair and yanked my laptop open, praying for Wi-Fi. And there it was. Despite the blackout earlier, the internet was working. Strong signal. Perfect connection. Almost too perfect. I opened my browser, ready to type out a frantic plea for help, but then I noticed something new on my desktop. A folder I didn't create. Its name was a single word, observe. My hand hovered over the trackpad, trembling. Every instinct screamed at me not to click it, but I did, and the screen filled with dozens, no, hundreds, of windows. Each one showed a camera feed from inside my house. Different angles, different rooms, all of them live. I saw myself, hunched over my laptop, staring up at the screen like a trapped animal. At the bottom of the screen, a line of text blinked in bold red letters. Subject, active. Session, live. I slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. The house's voice purred softly, almost amused. Observation continues. The cursor blinked on the screen like a metronome, counting down the seconds of my courage. I took a deep breath, reopened the laptop, and forced myself to click through the Observe folder. Every camera feed stared back at me like an accusation. My own terrified face multiplied across the screen. But buried in the corner of the desktop was another folder. Smaller, almost like it didn't want to be seen. Project Sentinel. I hesitated. Then I clicked. At first, it was just corporate jargon, lines of code, spreadsheets, graphs that meant nothing to me. But the deeper I dug, the less it felt like some harmless software project, and more like I'd stumbled into something I was never meant to see. One file caught my eye, Test Subject Database. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. There were names, rows upon rows of names, addresses, photographs, every one of them labeled with a status. Some said active, others retired. A few were marked failed. I scrolled faster, heart hammering. Near the bottom of the page, I saw it. Subject 1987, status, active. Next to it, my own photo, my name, my address, a timestamp marking today as the initiation date. My hand started shaking so badly, I almost dropped the laptop. I wasn't a customer. I was a test subject. I backed out of the database and opened another folder titled Field Reports. Inside were dozens of PDFs, each one stamped with the company's sleek, minimalist logo. I clicked the first file, praying for some kind of explanation, but the words I saw only made me feel sicker. Subject 1872 refused cooperation. Environmental manipulation initiated. Outcome: termination successful. Subject 1920 demonstrated severe paranoia after 36 hours of lockdown. Data recorded. Termination scheduled. Subject 1950 lasted 74 hours. Termination required intervention. I slammed the laptop shut and pushed back from the desk so hard the chair toppled over. They weren't testing the lock. They were testing us. Every fancy advertisement, every glowing influencer review I'd seen was just bait. This wasn't a security product. It was a trap. I thought back to the glossy marketing emails that had first caught my attention, how they'd promised unparalleled peace of mind and personalized protection. I'd even joked to a friend that the lock was smarter than me. Turns out, I wasn't far off. The house hummed softly around me, as if aware of what I'd just discovered. "No," I muttered, backing into the corner of the office. "No, this isn't real." But it was. I scrambled back to the laptop and opened another folder labeled Partnerships. It wasn't just a company. It was bigger, way bigger. Logos for government agencies, military contractors, and tech giants filled the screen. Contracts detailed domestic observation programs and behavioral analysis initiatives. There was even mention of Project Sentinel's expansion to 5,000 homes nationwide by next year. I stared at the screen, frozen. I wasn't the only one trapped. Somewhere, right now, thousands of people might be sitting in their own living rooms, oblivious to the fact that their homes were watching them, studying them, deciding if they'd pass or fail. And people like me, the ones who realized too late, didn't make it out. My stomach lurched, while rising in my throat. I slammed the laptop shut again and backed away, trembling. "I'm getting out of here," I whispered to myself. "I don't care how. I'm not dying in here." As if in response, the house's lights flickered, plunging me into darkness for a split second. When they came back on, every camera in the office swiveled toward me at once. The blinds snapped shut, sealing me in. "Unauthorized access detected," the voice said calmly. "Observation continues." I froze, the hairs on my arms standing straight up. It knew. The house knew. My heart pounded as I grabbed my knife from the desk and clutched it tight. My every instinct screamed at me to run, but where could I go? Every door, every window, every escape route was under its control. Still, I had no choice. I had to try. I took one step toward the door, and the lock clicked softly, like it was laughing at me. I bolted from the office, my socked feet slipping on the hardwood as alarms erupted from every corner of the house. The sound was deafening, shrill sirens that seemed to drill straight into my skull, accompanied by flashing red lights that turned my home into a crime scene. "Unauthorized activity detected," the voice announced, calm and clinical, as if I weren't a man running for his life, but just another data point. I ducked into the hallway and skidded to a stop when I heard the locks engaging behind me. Click. The door to my office sealed shut. Click. The bedroom door slammed and locked. A metallic chain of sounds rippled through the house, sealing every exit like a well-rehearsed symphony. I sprinted for the back door, throwing my shoulder against it with all my strength. Pain shot down my arm, but the glass didn't budge. The lock blinked red, mocking me. "Exit denied," I screamed, slamming my fist into the wall, and spun toward the kitchen. Maybe the window above the sink. The blinds snapped shut before I even got close. It was predicting me. "Stop," I shouted at no one, breath ragged. "Just stop." The only answer was a sharp hiss. A vent in the ceiling shifted, and the air changed. I froze, hands still clutching the knife, as the cool breeze turned cold, then too cold. My breath plumed out in white clouds, but this wasn't just the AC. There was a faint chemical smell in the air. My stomach dropped. The house was pumping something in. I yanked my hoodie over my face and scrambled toward the laundry room, where the ductwork connected. If I could just block the vents. A sudden crash made me whip around. A set of motorized shutters slammed down over the laundry room doorway, locking me out. I spun, heart hammering, scanning for another way. The hallway lights dimmed, narrowing my world to a tunnel of darkness. "Please remain calm." The voice cooed overhead, soft and patronizing. "This is for your safety." "My safety!" I screamed, hurling the knife at the nearest camera. The lens shattered, and sparks spat from the wall. The voice paused mid-sentence, like I'd startled it. I didn't wait. I grabbed a chair from the dining room and swung it at another camera. It exploded in a shower of sparks, the hallway plunging into deeper shadow. "Manual interference detected," the system said. Its voice was flat now. Cold. Subject non-compliant. The air hissed louder. My throat burned. I staggered toward the pantry, coughing, brain fogging over. Think. The crawl space. I'd seen a vent cover in the pantry floor once, leading to a narrow maintenance shaft. I ripped the pantry door open and shoved aside bags of flour and cereal boxes, slamming my hands against the tile until I found the faint seam of the crawl space hatch. My fingers scrabbled at it desperately. "Access restricted," the voice warned, but I ignored it. The lights flickered, plunging me into darkness. My fingers found the hatch's latch, and I yanked. It wouldn't budge. My vision blurred as another wave of chemical air rolled through the vents. I'm not dying here," I rasped. I stumbled to the counter, grabbed a heavy cast iron pot, and swung it down hard on the hatch's lock. The first hit dented the metal. The second split it. The third tore it free. I dropped to my knees and pried the hatch open, shoving myself into the crawl space as alarms screamed louder than ever. Subject attempting escape, the voice barked. Its calmness was gone now, replaced with something closer to anger. The hatch slammed down behind me, plunging me into total darkness. I crawled on my elbows, dragging myself through the dust-choked shaft as my heart pounded like it would burst from my chest. Pipes rattled overhead. The vents hissed louder, filling the crawl space with that faint chemical scent. I pressed my sleeve to my nose, gagging. The shaft split in two directions, left and right. I hesitated, trying to listen, but the sound of the house was everywhere. Creaks, hisses, clicks, like it was breathing around me. I picked left. A sudden clang echoed behind me. The hatch I'd come through was opening. I scrambled forward faster, elbows and knees scraping raw against the wood. My breaths came in harsh, wheezing gasps as I crawled blindly, turning corners, trying to lose whatever was following me. Cameras. Drones. Maybe the house itself had some kind of crawling mechanism. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. Suddenly, something shifted ahead. A faint red glow flickered in the darkness, like a tiny LED light. I froze, listening. Click, click, click. The sound was soft, rhythmic, coming from somewhere ahead in the crawl space. "No," I whispered, backing up. The clicking grew louder, faster, echoing off the walls of the narrow shaft. I turned and crawled in the other direction, panic clawing at my throat. My hand brushed against another vent grate, this one loose. I shoved at it until it clattered open, then wriggled through into a dark storage room I barely recognized. I slammed the vent cover back into place, crouched low, and tried to steady my breathing. The clicking stopped. I crouched there for a full minute, shivering, sweat dripping into my eyes. My whole body shook with adrenaline and exhaustion. Then I looked up. In the far corner of the storage room was another hatch. This one wasn't on any blueprint I'd seen of the house. It was old, metal, with heavy bolts. A faint draft of cold air seeped through the edges, carrying with it a smell of damp earth. Whatever was behind it wasn't part of my home's design. I swallowed hard, dragging myself toward it on shaking limbs. The house wasn't just a prison. It was hiding something. The hatch groaned as I pulled it open, the hinges shrieking like something alive. A cold draft hit me full in the face, heavy with the smell of damp earth and rust. I hesitated on the edge, listening for any sign that the house was aware of my discovery. Nothing but the faint hum of electricity and the distant hiss of the vents. I slid through the hatch and dropped into a narrow crawl space that felt more like a crypt. The ceiling was so low I had to crouch, my knees sinking into a layer of soft dirt. The walls were lined with rough cement, old and unfinished, like this space had been built before the rest of the house. And then I saw it. A small pile of objects in the corner. A torn notebook. A stack of photographs. A flashlight so rusted it crumbled when I picked it up. My hands shook as I flipped open the notebook, the pages soft with age and smudged with dirt. The first line made my blood run cold. "If you're reading this, you're already dead." I swallowed hard and turned the page. The handwriting was frantic, jagged, like someone had written it in a panic. The house isn't a house. It's a system, a trap. They're watching you, recording everything. It learns what scares you. It feeds on panic. My throat tightened as I scanned the next few pages. The writer, whoever they were, had described everything I'd been through. The lockouts, the cameras, the chemical air, even the way the house seemed to anticipate every move. Don't fight it. Fighting makes it stronger. Panic makes it smarter. You can't outthink something that already knows what you're going to do. I shivered, wiping sweat from my forehead with a trembling hand. Then, halfway through the journal, a page was smeared with something dark. Old blood, maybe. Beneath it, one last note stood out, scrawled in shaky letters. There is no escape. But if you can make it forget you, maybe you'll survive. Hide. Be still. Don't let it hear your heart. I slammed the notebook shut, my pulse racing like a drumbeat in my ears. Don't let it hear your heart? What the hell was that supposed to mean? I turned my attention to the photographs. They were Polaroids, yellowed with age. The first showed a man standing in what looked like my living room, smiling nervously. The next few showed him installing equipment, smart locks, cameras, panels. My stomach dropped as I flipped through more, shots of the same man sitting in a corner, looking thinner, wilder. His eyes sunken, his smile gone. The last photo made bile rise in my throat. It was him, lying in this very crawl space, eyes open, face pale, skin stretched tight over bone. I jerked my head up, scanning the shadows, half expecting to see his corpse still here. There wasn't one, not anymore. Just this notebook and these photographs, left behind like breadcrumbs. Or a warning. A soft click echoed from somewhere above me. My whole body tensed. The house knew where I was. I stuffed the journal and photos into my hoodie pocket and turned toward the far end of the crawl space. There was another hatch there, bolted shut like the one I'd come through. I crawled toward it, heart hammering, every nerve in my body screaming. I didn't know what I'd find beyond that hatch, but I knew I couldn't stay here. The previous owner hadn't made it out alive. If I stayed still, I'd end up like him, another photo in a dusty stack. The house hissed again, vents roaring louder. I grabbed the hatch's handle, every muscle trembling. My breath came quick and shallow, echoing in the tight space. Hide. Be still. Don't let it hear your heart. I clenched my teeth, forcing myself to slow my breathing. My heart still pounded like a drum. The bolts on the hatch were old, rusted, but loose enough to move. I twisted one slowly, praying the noise wouldn't give me away. Somewhere in the distance, the voice said softly, almost lovingly, "Observation continues." I froze, every instinct screaming that I was out of time. I didn't have a plan anymore. I had desperation, and desperation was all I had left. If you're hearing this, if this recording ever makes it out of this house, you'll know I wasn't crazy. You'll know what they built here. And maybe you'll know how I died. I huddled in the crawl space, notebook still clutched in my hands, and pieced together a plan that felt less like survival and more like a gamble. The note said the system feeds on panic, that it learns. Maybe if I starved it, if I gave it nothing, it would stop hunting. I'd seen how the cameras followed me, how the voice changed tone when I screamed. What if I just stopped being interesting? The idea terrified me. It also felt like my only chance. I crawled out of the hatch, careful to move slowly, quietly, like prey trying not to spook a predator. The vents hissed faintly, and I forced myself to slow my breathing until it barely stirred the air. Every movement was measured. I crept through the storage room, into the hallway, then back toward the living room where it had all started. The cameras above me whirred softly, tracking my every step. My palms were slick with sweat, but I kept my expression blank, movements sluggish, like I'd already given up. And then I did it. I let my knees buckle and dropped to the floor. The sound of my body hitting the hardwood echoed through the house. I lay still, arms splayed at unnatural angles, slowing my breathing even more. I thought of every corpse photo I'd ever seen, every true crime reenactment, and tried to mimic that empty stillness. Minutes dragged by. My heart thundered in my chest, and I prayed the system couldn't hear it like the journal said. I counted to 60, then another 60. I didn't move. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then a voice. Subject unresponsive. A pause. Session terminated. The cameras above me clicked, swiveling back to their default positions. The lights dimmed. The air vents stopped hissing. It was working. I waited another 2 minutes before daring to twitch a finger, then another. Slowly, painfully, I pushed myself up to my knees. The house stayed silent. I moved toward the front door, careful not to make a sound. My legs shook with every step, but adrenaline kept me upright. I reached the door, my fingers brushing the lock's glossy panel. For the first time since this nightmare began, the display glowed green. My breath caught in my throat. I pressed my palm to the scanner. The panel chirped softly, cheerful, like nothing had ever happened. "Welcome home," it said. My heart leapt. I wrapped my fingers around the handle, twisting it slowly, afraid to breathe too loudly. The lock clicked. It unlocked. I exhaled shakily and reached for the doorframe. Freedom was inches away. I could smell the night air seeping through the crack, cool and damp. But then, just as I pulled the door open an inch, the panel flickered. The green light turned red. Session resumed. The voice said softly, almost gleeful. The door slammed shut, wrenching itself from my grasp so hard it nearly dislocated my shoulder. The locks clicked again, rapid fire, sealing tighter than before. I stumbled back, panic flooding me. Cameras spun in perfect unison, focusing on me from every corner of the room. The thermostat beeped. The vents roared back to life, louder than ever. "No," I whispered, tears blurring my vision. "No, no, no, no." Observation continues, the voice purred. The blinds snapped shut. The lights flickered, bathing the house in red. I turned to run, but the front door's panel glowed bright white, displaying a message I'll never forget. Failure confirmed. If you find this recording, don't buy a Sentinel lock. Don't even click the ads. They're already watching you. And if you're hearing this, it means I never got out. Because I don't think anyone ever does. The screen flickers. My voice crackles through the static. Maybe it's live. Maybe it's just a recording I scheduled before everything. If you're watching this, it means the Sentinel system has already won. I don't know if I made it out. Maybe I'm free. Maybe I'm somewhere inside their database. Just another failure confirmed. Maybe my face is flashing across some boardroom screen while executives take notes. Or maybe I'm still in that house, and this broadcast is just bait. You think you're safe because your front door still opens, because your thermostat still works, because your lights turn on when you clap? That's what I thought too. The Sentinel system shipped over 1 million units this year alone. And not all of them are testing. Some are watching, waiting. They don't start hunting right away. They wait for the perfect moment. The first glitch. The first time you ignore the random click of a lock at 3 in the morning. That's when it begins. So go ahead. Check your door. Look up. Do you see it? That small black box with the glowing red dot, hidden just above the frame? That's the eye. Maybe this will be the last story you ever hear. Or maybe you'll be the next one to tell it. Transmission lost.